So, hey everyone, welcome back to Meet the Authors. We are here with me, I'm Chuck, Justin, co-host over there, and we're interviewing Karen Eisenbrey today. Before we do have kind of an agenda, we want to talk about Altered Carbon, which is going to be an interesting and short conversation for a very lengthy novel, and then we'll talk to Karen. Are you there, Karen?
I am here.
All right, great. And then we'll talk to you about some of your works and just get a little bit of, author insight from you. And then we'll open up the floor in about half an hour, and we'll just, continue our lovely conversation that we've already begun. All right. So kicking it off, the icebreaker. What do you think? How far were you able to get in Altered Carbon? And if anybody in the audience has read that or has experience with it, feel free to
even watch the show on Netflix. Is pretty popular. So.
2 episodes.
Yeah.
Haven't got back to it yet, but that's because loads of things have happened in the meantime.
Right.
But I liked what I saw.
Okay. I didn't get through it all, Chuck, because I only started reading about 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually listening to it. I'm about halfway through it. But it was a 17-hour long book. But it's very sci-fi, like detective noir, right? It's like taking like an old detective novel and setting it like hundreds of years in the future is kind of the impression that I'm getting. And he's a very hard-boiled, like kind of like Sam Spade kind of detective, only he's like cybernetically enhanced or whatever. So it's an interesting juxtaposition of genres.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. That's kind of one of the things that drew me into listening to the book. I saw the series and I wanted to watch it, but at the same time, I was like, I'm one of those people that this is way too popular, so I don't do it. But then I saw the book and I was like, well, you know what? I bet everybody's busy watching the series right now. Maybe I can just read the book instead. I'm 17% through it because it is 17 hours or however long.
Yeah.
Ridiculously long. And I do have one hang up on it, but it's not the story. The story is amazing, and the detail, the way that the author goes into the detail about the characters and the background, and he's obviously done a lot of thought and put a lot of research into what could potentially be happening. My biggest hang up is his use of adverbs, and I'm not religious about adverbs. Just I've started paying attention to it, in my own writing, and I get a little carried away. He like takes it to a whole new level. He invents adverbs when he has no adverbs. Right. So it's kind of an interesting thing because I love the story. So I'm listening to the story and then I get the adverbs and now I can't not.
Then you're like, another adverb.
And that's part of the reason it's taking me so long, because sometimes I'll put it down when I get to an adverb dense part, and then but then I remember how great the story is. So I have to pick it up and continue. And then so I'm doing it in bits and pieces.
And I understand that it's like a dense novel to get through. It's not exactly like a page turner, but once you're invested in the story, you want to see how it ends. But you can't just like some books. I'll just sit there and and I'll finish it in like 2 days, right? But yeah, I have to put this one down every once in a while too. But I don't have a problem with his adverbs so much as I have an issue with his use of like similes and metaphors, right? It's very much. And it comes from that old detective genre. Like, yeah. She walked into my office like a dame, whatever. I'm like, okay. So I noticed a lot of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Book. Yeah.
I thought the setting was very interesting because he's walking through the city and it's absolutely pissing down with rain. I just thought this is like Blade Runner.
Exactly. It's so much
really
like Blade
is.
Runner.
Yeah, the setting is he could almost have sort of said, right, I'm going to take that setting and I'm going to take this kind of plot and genre and put it together and see what comes out. Good shake. But I thought actually, they've got this bit where there's a little bit in the first episode where they walk into this building and there's this tree growing up the side of it and it's inside it, I think, but it's growing up a wall inside. I mean, it was absolutely beautifully rendered. I'm sure it was a CGI tree,
Yeah.
you know, but it was beautifully rendered. And I actually thought, this is really fantastic. And they've put a lot of effort into making it look really believable. You
I have
know,
a question for you. I haven't seen this. Am I echoing?
it is worth watching, I'm pretty sure, because I mean, it is incredibly violent as a piece of TV goes, but I mean, I watch that stuff all the time.
Right. I tried watching it a while ago. Yeah, I tried watching it a while ago, but I only got maybe like halfway through the first episode. I'm not a huge like cyberpunk fan.
Yeah, I'm not hugely into that.
But I'll try it again after I'm finished with the book. So
yeah,
I have more of a connection to it.
Yeah.
Now, did they voice over in the TV series? Because that would get me there if it was a Sam Spade like voiceover.
I can't remember actually.
I don't remember, but I don't think
I don't think they did that.
Oh, there's my incentive. Oh well. All right.
You could do your own voiceovers, Chuck.
Maybe like Mystery Science Theater 3000. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
All right. So yeah. So I guess on my scale right now, I'm not quite finished with it. I think I give it about a 4, just because I think that ultimately the story wins. And the story, I am going to finish it because the story is so good. So
well, 4 out of what, Chuck? 4 out of like 100 or 4 out of 10?
I'm going 4 out of 5 actually.
All right.
Stick with the Amazon imposition here.
Okay.
All right. Karen, are you ready to talk about some stuff?
All right.
Sure.
Excellent.
All right. So what we normally do is ask our guest authors to talk about whatever their most recent work is and like some of your inspiration for that. So that'd be a great place to start.
Okay. Well, my latest release is the 3rd book in a trilogy. And the name of the trilogy is Daughter of Magic. The 3rd book is Death's Midwife. And that it just came out this past March, so it's pretty new. And since it's the 3rd book of a trilogy, obviously it was inspired by the other 2 books, which the first book, Daughter of Magic, concerns a teenage girl whose parents are powerful magic users. And everybody has expected her to be one too, but she's almost 15 and has not had any inkling of any power. And how it shows up is that she begins getting visits from the dead in her dreams.
Okay.
And which was inspired by my experience of somebody I knew would die, and within a few days I would have a dream about them, as if they were visiting me or I was visiting them. And I thought, okay, well, what if we made that literally the spirit of this dead person is coming into a wizard's dreams and telling them something useful. And so that's how she first knew she had some magical ability. The second book, she decides, I'm not going to go the usual woman's way of being a healer. I want to be a wizard, even if these other wizards don't want me to be a wizard. So that one's called Wizard Girl. And this ends with her realizing that she still has a lot to learn. She thought she was right on the point of achieving everything she needed to do to be a wizard. And then she realizes, I still have a lot of work to do on myself. So then in the 3rd book, she comes back to civilization, ready to be a wizard. And
don't spoil it.
And yeah, I'm not going to spoil it, but she comes back to the city and is trying to find her place. And she has this one unique ability, which is not only do the dead visit her dreams, but she can send her own spirit to the afterlife to visit them.
Ooh.
Nobody else does this. And she's trying to figure out, is this even useful? Is this dangerous? Should I or should I not use this ability? And the book follows her as she's trying to not do it, and opportunities keep arising where she has to. And then there is a legendary spirit on the other side who is threatened by her ability and is trying to make her stop or trying to make her stay. And she doesn't want to stay. But then this legendary figure manages to kidnap the spirit of someone she cares about. And so she has to mount a rescue, basically.
Nice.
That sounds pretty exciting. And
Yeah.
is this a young adult? It sounds like it might be targeting young adult readers.
Yeah, it's I mean the main character is 17 in the second two books, so still very much young adult. Most of my readers seem to be adults, but
Yeah,
but some
I still
teenagers
read
have read it and enjoy it too. But that's sort of the target. So it's the books are not overly long, but they're fantasy length, which is longer than most other YA. The main characters are teenagers, so they get into the kind of stupid trouble that teenagers get into, mainly because they don't think things through. But the adults are also present and are not completely hapless and useless.
Oh, good. Being an adult, that really helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someday I'll be an
I
adult.
mean, I often think, yeah, adults make their mistakes, but usually people's parents and teachers aren't completely useless.
So you
There you go.
had said fantasy length. How many words would you say?
I kind of in the 90,000
Okay.
range. Daughter of Magic and Death's Midwife are a little shorter than Wizard Girl. I think Wizard Girl is over 100.
Okay. Yeah, because mine is about 100, and I was wondering if it was too long, because it's not exactly fantasy. It might, shorten it up a little bit. So
Yeah,
just
what I've heard
say-
is with fantasy, you can get away with more words because that's expected.
right.
And if it's epic fantasy, you can get away with even more words.
I
But
just write.
I don't write
novels.
epic.
What was that, Helen?
I just write epic novels.
Oh, there you go.
I just think, a story has to go to its natural length, really.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I think it's better perhaps for me to be self-publishing, So,
Yeah. So Karen, do you write any other genres, or is it all fantasy? Or?
Well, I kind of different flavors of fantasy and some science fiction.
Okay.
My other series is contemporary YA with superpowers and garage rock. So it's a garage rock superhero mashup, which is loads of fun to write.
I bet. Yeah. Like Josie and the Pussycats, right?
Kind of, actually,
Nice.
not too far off. More like the
Sweet.
movie than the comic book.
Okay. I've never seen the movie.
The movie is great.
I'll have to give it a shot.
So question, I do have a question. You write all over the place. What inspired you to take on a fantasy series? I mean, that's not exactly that's not light work. I mean, there's a lot of work involved.
Right.
Because I didn't know any better. This actually started a long time ago, like decades ago. I had a literal actual dream one night, very short. But it came across as the scene from a story that had these two wizard characters, 2 or 3 plot twists within this very short scene. And I had a lot of kind of intuitive knowledge of what was going on, like you do in dreams, that, okay, these two have been on opposite sides of a conflict, but now they are on the same side, except maybe they're not. And one of them is betraying the other, or is he? So that's the plot twist. And it was vivid enough that I remembered it to talk about it. And my husband said, that sounds like something you could put in a fantasy novel. Oh, duh, yeah, hey, maybe I should. And so I started stumbling around trying to write a book about those characters and realizing, oh, this is late in the story. How did they get to this point? And then what?
Oh,
And
no.
so I bashed out a novel that was pretty bad, but it was worth working on. So it went back and revised it, I don't know how many times. And then like, oh, and then what happened? So then I started writing another book, but realized, oh, wait, but there needs to be another story in between these two. So I wrote that. Then I went back and wrote that third one. Then I realized, no, there's another story in between the first one and the second one. And so I had 4 book-length manuscripts, none of which were, the other 3 couldn't be published without the first one. And the first one was so flawed that I knew it was going to need a lot more work. So they just sat there. I wasn't sure what to do with them, but I kept thinking about them. And at the end of that 4th book, the main characters were expecting a child. And I thought, okay, well, what kind of character is she going to be when she's 15? And I wrote Daughter of Magic thinking, oh, 5th book in an unpublishable series. What am I doing? And then I had a new thought. Well, wait a minute. Maybe I should write this so it could be the first book of something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was, by that time I wrote that one, I kind of knew how to write a book. And so it was tighter. It made more sense. It went a little bit more like a fantasy novel, but still with my own little twists on it. And I worked that up as a thing that could stand on its own or start a new series, and submitted that to Not a Pipe Publishing, and they really liked it. So like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'll do this trilogy, and if people like that, maybe then I'll go back to those other books and get them up to speed. So
when you submitted it for publishing, did they know it was a trilogy?
I think I implied that it could be.
Okay.
And because I had already written Wizard Girl by that time too.
Yeah.
And had the ideas for Death's Midwife. I hadn't completely written it yet, but so they knew, and they had started publishing some other trilogies, so they were open to that.
And that's yeah, I asked that question only because like I'm writing a trilogy as well, and I don't know if it's like more marketable to say this is a trilogy or this is a single book or what, you know.
You hear different things. You hear, oh, they don't want to, publishers don't want to commit to a trilogy, but on the other hand, trilogies are very popular.
Right.
So I think you present it as this book could stand alone, but it also leads into a trilogy or a series, and they might be willing to bite.
Okay. Excellent.
I'm in the Alexandra Torre group on Facebook, and basically she just says, try and write series or trilogies or whatever you can, if possible, because you make more money out doing it that way, because people will come back and back and back as long as it takes to read all your stuff.
Yeah,
so
that's a good idea.
I think that's pretty cool advice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Karen, you might publish the earlier ones as prequels, maybe?
That's my thought. And I think it won't be 4 books. I think it'll be 5.
Okay.
Because it's sort of a trilogy with these intermezzos. So book 1, 3, and 5 could be their own thing. And then there are these sort of Meanwhile Back at the Ranch books in between.
Right.
Because I just had this idea of, well, what are the wizard's friends doing back home once he's taken off? He's come home, he's saved the day, and then he leaves again. But I like all these people and I like this town. What are they doing in the meanwhile?
So it's interesting because like if you're familiar with The Expanse, it's a big long 9-book series of like space exploration, but there are other minor characters that they take and write smaller novellas and release those about those minor characters. So it kind of seems like maybe something you're doing as well. Yeah,
it's kind of along those lines.
Yeah.
And excellent. That is fun to pick up minor characters and go, okay, well, what was this person doing while the main character was over here doing this other thing?
Right.
Yeah, I enjoyed that too, because then it's like there aren't any rules anymore. Like when you're writing the main characters of the series, you have to connect the dots between and have the series flow. But if you have a side character, there's a whole lot that nobody ever saw about them that you can like bring in and just play with. So
yeah, and then you don't have to make up a whole other world.
Right.
You can use your world you already built.
Speaking of rules, like Chuck had brought up, kind of our next question was, how do you plan out or design your fantasy world? But my question, because your book has magic in it, how do you keep like those rules of magic straight through your whole like series? Right.
Well, mostly by not really planning it.
Okay.
It's more been discovering it as I go.
Okay.
I started with characters in a situation and had kind of an idea of the world, because the world I've put them in is pretty realistic, other than the magic that the humans are capable of. It's our world. It's literally some of our world, because it's the Pacific Northwest kind of geography and climate, but as a fantasy realm. And I would go until I'd have to make a decision, and then I'd make a decision, and that's it. Now that's canon. And then I'd go a little more, what's the name of the city? What's there if they ever go there? What will they find when they get there? And the magic system was just sort of developing the same way, was as needed. Okay, yes, they can do this, or no, they can't. And it wasn't until everything was pretty much all written that I decided, you know what, I need to actually think about what is the system? How does it work?
Yeah.
And that was actually really fun. And my young adult kids have been great. They give me input and ideas all the time of, well, what if it's like this? And like, thank you. You've answered a question I didn't know I needed to ask. But we decided that, okay, the magic is derived within the person from their atypical neurology. So basically the wizards are kind of autistic. And because of that, they have these special abilities. And so it's not something that a person can just go and learn. It's something you're born to.
Yeah.
Kind of like being a Jedi.
Yeah, kind of like that. But it makes them a little off to people who don't have magic. Magic users seem a little weird and a little hard to live with. And use of magic requires physical energy. So you get run down, or you forget to eat a meal, you're not going to be able to do your magic. So you need to stay healthy, you need to stay fit, you need to eat regular meals, you need to stay hydrated, all of those things. And
the lifestyle.
Yeah. And everybody has different strengths. So, okay, you've got magical ability. You can learn to do things that are hard, but they'll still be hard. And there are other things that are more like a natural talent that will just come more easily. They won't take as much energy. But if you're called upon to do one of the hard things because you have to, you do it, but you pay for it later.
Okay.
You might be zonked the next day.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I like that. I like that. Go ahead.
If you get really sick, you can't do anything.
Karen, have you got a website?
Yes, I do.
Have you thought about
KarenEisenbreyWriter.com?
Oh, right. So have you thought about putting those canon rules about the magic up on that website? Because what I did when I wrote one of my books, I invented a language for it, because I had some terms that I needed to use and needed to invent. So I sort of wrote a little summary for myself, and then ages later I found it and I thought, I could put that up on the website. Of course, it actually fitted in really well, and it meant that people could actually go and check out what something meant outside the book, although I always explained it in the book as well.
That's actually a really good idea, because it doesn't get fully explained in the book, because they don't know as much about it as I do.
Yeah.
Or they don't use the terminology that I use.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really good idea.
Well, I do like how you're grounding it in kind of reality a little bit of rules, instead of just being like, oh, you're just magic, like in the Harry Potter thing. It's just like, you're just magic because you're magic, right? I like that you have like, it's physical labor. It's something you have to work to do. So, and it's because of your, like you said, your atypical neurology. I think that's great. I really like fantasy based on reality, kind of, I guess.
That, and I did it that way partly because I was reacting against a lot of things that I'd been reading, the popular middle grade series and things like that, where it's like, I'm just tired of people going on these kind of game-like fetch quests.
Yeah.
And I was tired of battles and kings and monsters and magical objects and all of that. So I set myself this really difficult and kind of stupid goal to write this thing that didn't have any of those. I was like, I don't want battles, I don't want monsters, I don't want kings. And so now here I am 7 books down the road thinking, have I painted myself into a corner?
Right.
But in the last couple of books, I've written in some loopholes, which is that there's a lot that they've forgotten or lost, which means if I need something, I can have them rediscover it. And I can have them invent new kinds of spells that do things that they weren't doing before because nobody knew how, but now somebody has figured it out.
Yeah.
And I still don't have magical creatures, but in a spin-off book that I'm working on now, I have a boy who kind of accidentally figures out that he can transform into real animals, but with added kind of bonus features.
Oh.
He does it by accident the first time, but like, and I thought, well, if he can put wings on a bison, he could portray a dragon, even though they don't have dragons, but they have stories about dragons like we do.
Right.
So he will be able to turn into things that don't actually exist, which is new. Nobody else has been doing that. But because he's going to be a theater wizard. He's going to be a special effects guy.
Oh, there you go.
Nice. That's clever. Yeah, I think my daughter was reading a book about this little girl in this magic school, and the little girl could not do any of the magic correctly. I can't remember the name of the book, but I'll share it somewhere.
That's Sesame Street, Chuck.
What?
Sesame Street. There's a thing on Sesame Street, and it's a fairy school, and it's about these fairies, and one of those fairies can't do any magic right.
Oh,
right?
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'm intrigued by that because like some of the in science and in life, really, some of the most amazing things you discover by accident.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of cool. All right, so we've been chatting for a while. I think it's time. Thanks, Karen, for letting us in.
Sure.
Peek at your process and some of your works. I noticed you get quite a bit of work or a lot more work on your website at KarenEisenbreyWriter.com.
Yeah.
So
okay. You have blogs and one thing I wanted to ask you about, because you rate band names, right? You have things about band names. I have a band. My band name is Black Box. What do you think of that name?
It's not bad.
All right. So you don't need.
It's kind of left up to the hearer to interpret.
Right. Exactly.
Right. It's mysterious.
Nice. Yeah, I think I also, believe it or not, had a band back in the day a while ago called Permanent Ascent. It was kind of a grunge mix or ska grunge mix, which was one of many of those same types of bands that never went anywhere back in the day. It was a fun experience.
Yeah. So I had a question, not a question, but more of an observation. A lot of the writers that we talk to, Chuck, always say, and I think you even said, they're inspired by their dreams, right? And everybody has these dreams, and it's I don't know, it's strange to me because I don't I don't have dreams that I remember. And it's like, I've even tried, like, I'm trying hypnosis and all this lucid dreaming stuff. None of it works. Nothing I remember. I just sleep and I wake up. So I'm envious of these people who are like, I had a dream about this. I was like, damn it. You know?
Well, at least for me, it's not the usual thing
Yeah.
to have it be vivid enough or to make sense enough to make a story out. But that one time, it happened.
I can also say that those experiences are extremely rare. Disturbing, and you don't want to write about those.
Right.
Yeah, when I was younger, it was almost every night. As I've gotten older, I've gained a lot more peace, and I'll tell you, to be able to sleep in peace, not a bad thing.
Yeah. And to that end, Guy, I think the last dream I had was when I was in Iraq.
Yeah.
And then I haven't dreamt since. So
And it might be a defense mechanism.
maybe.
You know? So I'm just saying that's at some point in time, you know, that your body protects itself, your mind protects itself.
Yeah.
How interesting. I've had, like, most of my dreams that I can remember lucid dreams. I never forget that I'm in total control in all my dreams, which goes for some really interesting things because they don't follow the plot line. So like when there's a serial killer like chasing me through the house, you know, you can jump out the window and like fly off into the distance.
Here, take that, serial killer.
Yeah, exactly.
They're catching up, so you just put on the jetpacks and just, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the best. Although I've also had sleep paralysis, which is where you can where you're laying there and you're partially awake.
That's horrible. You can't move.
Yeah, and especially when you group that with hallucinations, which is part of the sleep paralysis experience, the full experience. And then that's kind of a horrible experience. I don't wish that on anybody.
You've had the hallucination too?
Oh yeah. Somebody in
man.
a mirror like trying to come get me, and while I'm lying there not able to move at all. Yeah.
Oh man, I'd be terrified.
Oh,
yeah. Good reason to have peaceful sleep.
Yes.
Kind of remember to do it.
Exactly.
I have written songs. I used to be a songwriter, wrote for Disney and a couple of others back in the 60s and 70s. But so I've written songs from dreams, but not books. Most of my books are really rooted. I've tried to root them in real events, you know, real mysteries, real. I think real life has got so many scary things. I figure if I'm going to write thrillers, that's, boy, what a plethora. We live in a plethora of thrills right now.
Yeah.
People
Unfortunately.
go to therapy because of daily thrillers.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a lot of content out there. Have you guys noticed, or not you guys, but have you all noticed a trend in entertainment of moving from some of the like Game of Thronesy type of stuff that's just in your face, like violence and stuff, back and kind of shifting back to more friendly topics? Or have you noticed any changes there or not? Just curious.
I don't watch enough popular media to be able to say. I've tried to kind of distance myself the last decade or so, because in my mind it was getting same old, you know, same plots, same violence, just lots of tricks and explosions and car chases, and I got disinterested. It wasn't interesting.
I think one of the things, Chuck, Guy froze up. But anyway, I think one of the things, Chuck, is like Game of Thrones left such a bad taste in everyone's mouth. They're like, let's never do anything like that again, because the ending was so bad.
Wasn't that because George R.R. Martin didn't write it?
Hasn't finished.
Yeah.
Hasn't finished it.
Lost interest, and they were trying to get, you know, blood out of a stone, really, weren't they?
Yeah, basically. So, are you back, Guy, or are you still frozen?
I think he's still frozen.
Wow.
He's still frozen.
All right.
No, you know, I really enjoyed the books for the Game of Thrones. And I
did, and then I was like,
good.
Yeah, I was like, where's the next one?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I've read what is it called? Dying of the Light, which is by George R.R. Martin. And I thought it was a really good book. And it's the only other book until a few years ago that I've read that has got polyandry in it, which I used in Flood Tide. And anyway, that was really good. But I just had no interest at all in reading Game of Thrones or watching it or anything. It just leaves me cold, I'm afraid. And I think that's partly because some of the fantasy that's come out, like you said, Karen, you know, it's a little bit all sort of like high fantasy or Tolkien-esque stuff. And then there's a lot of fantasy that's related to quests and stuff like that. And actually, you know, people have been doing it for a long, long time. And I don't know, it just doesn't appeal particularly. So
I read the first Game of Thrones book, and I found it very frustrating, even though I loved what he was doing with characters and I admired his world building, but the pace was so glacial.
Right.
oh,
Unremittingly, and it didn't matter what was happening. The action scenes were slow, the talky scenes were slow, the sexy scenes were slow. So I stuck with it and finished the book because I was interested in the characters.
But you didn't take it any further.
And then I was like, I didn't like the plot. I couldn't take the pace.
Yeah.
So I read the first book. I gave him that much and was like, okay, I know enough about this to know that I don't need to read the rest of this, especially knowing it was going to be a big, long series and he wasn't done with it yet.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
And like me, he is a slow writer.
Yeah.
Because I think he's not planning it out ahead. He's discovering it as he goes. And I know how that is.
Yeah. And
that's
also,
a really slow way to write a book.
It's a slow way to do it. But, you know, I mean, I sort of go out walking in the daytime quite a lot. And I like to sort of think about things, plots and stuff like that when I go out.
I do the same thing.
Yeah, it's really good because you remove yourself from that environment where you've got the computer in front of you and you just go out and you're taking in sense impressions and stuff like that, and it does influence you, but also it's time out from your writing where you're still writing in your head, but you're actually you know, you're removing yourself from that pressured environment of, oh, I must put something on the page today, you know.
Yeah, I've had a lot of breakthroughs where I've written, you know, or walked. I was just walking and I'll walk 5 or 10 miles.
Yeah. And
I'll just be thinking about a story and be like, oh crap, that's awesome, that'll work. And then write it down while I'm walking.
Yeah.
So do you carry a notebook around with you in your back pocket when you're out doing that?
Yeah, I have a little actually a little waterproof notebook that I got from work. So so I can drool all over it.
I have a good idea out walking. I just then repeat it over and over and over to make sure I don't forget.
Make sure you don't forget it.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point I was recording stuff on my phone while I was out, but I don't do that anymore because I haven't got a voice recorder on this phone, and I haven't managed to find one that I think sounds as if I could actually use it. But I mean, you know, I'll tend to think of things and maybe type up a few ideas on my iPad or something like that. If in the middle of the night I've got up and written a poem, you know, and things like that. So yeah, I do think you've got to have access to something to jot your ideas down in some way, shape or form.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, it's gone and it never comes back.
Yeah, I sit here and I wonder how many ideas that I've forgotten.
Yeah,
because I didn't write them down.
I think there was a Neil Gaiman episode in Sandman where this chap wanted to be a writer and have ideas, and he had all these ideas all the time, and they were coming so thick and fast. And somebody, you know, did some magic for him, and they were coming so thick and fast that he couldn't actually record them fast enough before they were gone. You know, and.
It's like a Twilight Zone episode right there.
Doesn't it? Yeah, well, I'm sure Neil Gaiman probably drew up on that. or grew up on that, and it, you know, yeah, kind of. You know, we were talking earlier about experiences and things like that. I've just been thinking, maybe we should sort of think about the stuff that we know and would be willing to share with other people for background.
You mean like our careers and our experiences? Like if somebody
Well, yeah, I mean, I did geology and planetary science for my degree, and then I did fashion before that. Couldn't get more different, could I?
I actually need I have an idea for a foundation that I'm working on, and I would need a geologist.
Oh, right. Well, you know, get in touch. Just email me if you wanted to make a session, you know, on Zoom and that. Have a chat.
It very much has to do with geology and planetology. So,
yeah.
Excellent. There's my geologist.
Yeah.
They're easy. All right. Yeah. So my background is in computers, really. I've been programming since I was like in high school, junior high, I guess.
Yeah.
So anything I've been swimming in that for ages. And I do have a college degree in bioinformatics. So if you're interested in that boundary of biology and which really helped in writing models and citizens.
I was going to say that comes across in your books, Chuck.
I had to do a lot less research than I would have had to do otherwise.
Yeah.
And then music. So I guess I've been doing music probably just about as long as I have a little bit of music theory and stuff too, if that's an area that anybody needs. I'm always accessible. Just shoot me an email or message, you know?
Yeah.
What have I got? I'm a church nerd. So
All right.
All right.
And music. Although I'm not the expert in the house. My husband's a composer.
Oh, awesome.
And has several music degrees. So there's that. And then I'm always relying on my kids as experts in various things. You know, they're my science advisors and my world building advisors, and because they play a lot of video games and think about these things in a different way than I do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's actually quite a lot of things like planetary science and stuff that goes into building a game.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's similar to writing a book. We used to have a guy in one of the orbiters that I was in, about in the 90s this was, and he was married to a lady who worked in the British space industry, but he himself was a games designer and coder. So,
Oh, how fun.
Yeah.
So Karen, you said you're a church nerd. Does that mean that like you study religion, or are you just
No, it's more that I'm a preacher's kid.
Okay.
And currently a church secretary, and have been involved in church life from the inside for pretty much my whole life.
Okay.
So I know a lot about the behind the scenes and just what it's like.
Okay. Excellent. I'm an electrical engineer, and I work for the government. So if you need to know how inefficiently the government is run, just ask me. I'll tell you.
Right. You know, Justin, that's interesting because I did a bit of contracting when I got out of the Marine Corps. So I forgot to mention the Marine Corps, but yeah, let me know about military stuff too.
Same. I was in the Army.
Right.
Tours in Iraq and all that fun stuff. So
I've worked in the retail trade. If anybody wants to know about stuff like that.
What was that, Helen?
I worked in the retail trade. I was a professional trainer as well.
Okay.
Professional trainer?
Yeah. Well, back in, I suppose in the 80s, we had a massive recession, and so the government set up two schemes. The first one was youth training, and eventually, after 4 years out of work myself, after I moved here for a job, I ended up going and working for a company called Mid Anglia Training, and I became a professional trainer, and I designed, presented a course to 16 to 18-year-olds about how to sell stuff and how shops work and all that sort of stuff, because I'd been a shop manageress.
I was thinking you're like a professional like trainer, like
oh no, not that sort.
That's
No,
what
I'm
my
very
mind was.
unphysical, I should say. So yeah, so that's another thing that I've done. That's
Chuck,
why I
I
do
think-
workshops and stuff.
Chuck, I think I interrupted you. I'm sorry. You were saying Marine Corps, something else as well, but sorry.
Yeah, no, that was ages ago. It could have been anything. Well, we'll never know. I mean, that's like
That was like
asking
30
me.
seconds ago, Chuck.
Right. Yeah, I know, right? It's weird, but yeah, that one's gone. We'll have to come back to it.
Sorry, man.
Yeah.
Karen, there was something I saw on your website that was intriguing. You have like little snippets of micro flash fiction. And it seems like maybe like 50 to like 100 words of like real small stories, kind of. Let me see if I can get your website.
I do write flash fiction. I don't think any of it's on my website, but
Well, it was, let's see.
but you know what? You're probably seeing my Twitter feed that's on the side of the,
Yeah,
and I retweeted micro flash fiction because they're one of my favorite things on Twitter.
Okay. And is that what it is? Like just real short?
Yeah, they write these little short 280 character stories.
Awesome.
I think they aim for 3 a day and just tweet them out. And he's batting 1,000. I haven't seen a bad one yet.
Excellent. I'll have to check that out. I wasn't really aware of that. So
Yeah,
I didn't know that was.
there's a couple other people who are doing that, but that's my favorite.
okay.
I can't use my Twitter account anymore because I woke up one morning and it had been turned into Russian, and I don't know how to turn it back. I did Russian for about a year, and I don't know how, but I don't know enough to be able to. And I can read the characters after a fashion, but I don't know enough to be able to turn it back, and so I've just left it. I suspect it's just that somebody's turned it into Russian so that they could post something up, and it's assumed that therefore that I must be a Russian speaker, but I can't turn it back. I'm actually going to close it down at some point.
Yeah.
I hate Twitter anyway, but I didn't know that they did that. My education proceeds apace.
I don't have any social media, which makes it hard to promote any writing I'm doing.
You do need to do some social media. Are you not on LinkedIn or anything like that?
I'm on LinkedIn just for my
I'll
for my
find
career.
you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn too.
Right, okay.
If you happen to find me.
So
that flash fiction just blows my mind. I see that like there are challenges that Reedsy has. I follow Reedsy on social media, and they have a challenge where they post something and they ask for like a sentence or a 2-sentence horror story. And I am horrible at that. I use many sentences to say very little stuff. So
I found writing flash fiction is really good practice for editing.
The mind.
So if somebody says, write this kind of a story in 750 words or 1,000 words. It's like, okay, so I go and I write this kind of story, whatever it is, and then probably have to trim it back. And so then you're just in there, okay, what is fat and what is the bones and the meat and what can I take out? And that's just really good practice for larger pieces, because then you could look at them that way.
That's a good idea.
Well, yeah,
this
Chuck
chapter is bloated.
Yeah. Chuck and I last year entered a writing contest, and it was like 1,000-word limit or whatever. And we didn't win, but both our stories were better than the one that won anyway. So whatever.
The thing is, it's very subjective. Anything like that,
right.
isn't it?
Yeah, it was 1,000 words or less, and I struggled with that like a lot.
Yeah, it is difficult, really, because you need to work out what does the reader actually need to know for this story to work for them.
And how much of a story is that? What idea is the right size to be completely worked out in 1,000 words?
Yeah. I think also, I mean, you think about it, we spend all our time learning to write character, learning to write dialogue, learning to do world building, learning to develop plot and pacing and, you know, building up the action and everything. And then when you do a flash fiction, I can't for the life of me see how you can possibly do it without just doing a told story rather than a shown story, because a shown story is going to take up massive amounts more than a told story.
So I got a challenge. Whoa, is that super loud for everybody?
You're better now.
No, no, it's fine.
I don't know what happened. It was super loud in my ears. I was like, uh-oh. So Chuck, you said you can't write the 2-word horror stories. You should have 5 of them done by the next time we do this. I'll do the same, and whoever wants to as well.
All right.
I'm not going to even take that up because I'm so immersed in trying to get the Zardoth Imperative book started off. I'm going through them gradually, but it does take a long time, you know. And I decided that I would like to have my one of my Zardothi crews marooned on a planet in orbit around a brown dwarf. So of course there was a bit of world building to do for that. So,
yeah, what does the planet look like?
Exactly. I mean, I did a lot of research, and you're looking at planets that have very little water, which was okay because I'd kind of written that all in as well. But you've got high windstorms. You've got so then I adapted the plant forms so that they flew through the air. And little bits crack off, and that was how they propagated.
So Helen, one of the stories that I'm writing is called Tidal, and it's about a tidally locked planet and people living in the habitable
Well, the moon is tidally locked.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
But this one's tidally locked to its star, and it has just like this thin strip of habitable land.
Mercury.
Yeah.
Mercury is tidally locked as well. Yep. And so you've got that one side that's absolutely baked all the time, one side that's really cold, and you might be able to exist on that sort of strip all the way around at the interface of the two.
That's a good story. I think that's the one you brought to one of our critiques, right? One time.
Yep.
Yeah. I hope you pull that one, bring that one along. I'd never considered that possibility until I read that, to be honest.
You might also be interested to check out The Flight of the Invincible by Stanislav Lem.
I heard his name come up a couple times.
He's a really good writer. He wrote Solaris, which is one of my favorite ever books.
I'm trying to remember where I saw his name just recently. Did he publish something recently, or
might have done? Is he still alive? He's been around for a very long time.
I don't know.
But I mean, you look at Jack Vance. Jack Vance is amazing because I think he's still around, and he does music and he does, you know, science fiction and stuff.
I remember why it came up because I was looking for a book, kind of like Dune or Children of Time that deal with like deep timelines. And apparently he has one like that. I don't remember what it's called, but I wanted to check that one out. So
yeah,
I'm always fascinated by deep, like time.
By deep time, like multiple generations and
like, you know, billions of years timeline, like in the future, like, you know.
Oh.
You mean like
not even in the future, but even in the past.
Foundation.
Yeah, like Foundation, exactly. Where you have civilizations that have been around for millions of years. But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I've read Prelude to Foundation. I haven't read Dune because it has intimidated me into silence.
It is intimidating.
Yeah. But
it's I'm not a huge fan of like Dune. Because, and it's kind of to your point, Karen, as well. It's very dense, and it's all this stuff like that's together. And you said like, you know, like the monsters and the quests and all this other stuff. I'm not making a whole lot of sense, I don't think.
Oh, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
But like Chuck said, it's very intimidating, and anything where you're like thrown into this culture that's been around and has been built up for so long, like, and then you're like, oh, here's the book, here's these people. I don't like getting like thrown into that much. There's a couple I like. House of Suns by Alistair Reynolds is another one that's like that.
I've read a short story in New Scientist by him. That's my treat for every week, to read New Scientist
by Alistair Reynolds.
It was an Alistair Reynolds. I think it was an Alistair Reynolds. Or no. It might be Adrian Tchaikovsky. I'm getting the sorry.
Yeah, I've read.
There was a short story in there, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, I've read
really good.
Children of Time, and then the sequel to Children of Time. Yeah, both by Tchaikovsky. Those are great books.
I haven't read Children of Time, but I bought it at a discount store because I thought it looked interesting. Yeah. And then it's on my list.
It's on your list, yeah.
Yeah. Let's get that one, Chuck. That one's good. As long as you don't have a fear of spiders.
Oh, right.
No, I definitely don't.
I must admit, I don't like the way they skedaddle about on the floor.
Skedaddle. Nice.
All right. So we're about at the end of our hour. Thank you, Karen, for coming and letting us know about your writing approach.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really interesting.
Anytime. Come on back. We do this. Chuck always sends the invites out, but once a month, and whoever wants to come back, we usually feature a new writer. Like this time we had you, Karen. Thank you. Like Chuck was saying, so much for joining us.
Yeah, that's great.
Helen, thanks for making the time. I know it's difficult with the time zone difference. I missed your fiction fix. Was it last week or the week before?
Oh yeah, I know.
I'm so upset about that.
Don't worry about it. I'm sending out the invites probably tomorrow for next week, so I'll invite you again. And would you like to? I run a thing called Fiction Fix, Karen, and it's basically myself and my friend Colin. I mean, originally I just started this all off in a pub, but we've now had to move to Zoom. So basically, we get 4 other authors, and everybody gets 10 minutes to read a couple of pages of A4, effectively. And you need to start off by working out what you're going to read. And then after you've worked it out according to, it's 2 pages of A4, Times New Roman, 12 point. Once you've worked out what you're going to read, then you can put it in whatever font you like, and whatever size you need to have it to read aloud. But basically, everybody gets that 10-minute slot, and we have 6 readings. And we've started doing this thing where we invite people to the Zoom meeting so that they can come and join in. We record the actual meeting, but afterwards we have like a half an hour or so chat, and that's not recorded. And we say to people, if you don't want to be recorded, but you want to be part of the studio audience, as it were, then just switch your video off at that point, if you don't want your image to go on. And then, the actual chat at the end is not recorded, but anybody can stay to it and, ask questions of all the authors, or just chat among yourselves, or whatever,
Yeah, I'd love to be invited too. Send me an invite.
Okay, well, I'll invite all of you then.
All right.
And I'll send it out generally. Can I, actually, Chuck, can I send it? So you can just forward the email then.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Everybody, yeah.
And if you want to as well, the whole purpose is for us to all kind of know each other,
build up contacts and things. Yeah, no, I think this is a
or
really
if you want me
good
to do
way.
it, I'll do it too. Just let me know whichever way you want to go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So if I send one to you, and then you send it out to everybody else. Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
And then you're already on the list anyway. And it's a lot of fun, but also what we do, we live stream the recorded part to Facebook, Colin organizes the OBS studio thing so that streams it out so that it can go to Facebook. And then I handle the Zoom bit and record the meeting. And then I post that on my YouTube channel. But I mean, we get.
It's a lot of fun. I've been, and the authors that you get together are pretty amazing, actually. I've not been disappointed with anybody that's read.
So. It's been good, hasn't it? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks everyone for spending another Saturday morning. Let's let everybody go, and hopefully see you next month at the same time.
Yeah. It's great meeting y'all. Thanks for your time. Hope to
Lovely
see you again
to see
soon.
you guys again, and Guy, and I didn't get to chat to John, obviously. Where is he? Is he sort
of? He's been on our list for a while. He doesn't normally come to these, but I think he's got stuff coming out, so we may get him on one of these as a feature. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, that's fabulous, and it's lovely to meet you, Karen. And hope to see you at Fiction Fix.
All right. Bye-bye.
Brilliant.
Stay cool, Seattleites.
Bye-bye. Stay cool.
Yeah.